Hi guys, and welcome back to our book club. This is chapter 15. Before we get into reading the chapter, you know that I'm going to recap chapter 14 first. And it was a pretty good one. I think that Gloria was trying to teach Opal a pretty good lesson in this chapter. If you didn't catch it, it is our vocab word. I decided to pull out part of our vocab word. Um, Gloria Dump walks Opal and WinnDixie back to this tree in the backyard when Opal mentions that Otis, her boss at the pet store, is a criminal. And Opal really doesn't know what to think about it, and she's been wanting to tell an adult. And so Gloria takes her back to this tree, which has all these bottles hanging on it. And she says those bottles are mistakes. And she just talks about how you can't judge a person by those mistakes. And if you think about it, all those bottles, there were a lot. She said they were cluttered in the tree. Opal didn't know any of that stuff about Gloria, so she had this great opinion of her. And I think what Gloria was trying to say was she hopes that that opinion doesn't change now that she sees all these bottle mistakes hanging in her tree. Just like Otis being a criminal, we don't know what crime he committed. That's only one small part about him. We know a lot more about him other than that. We know that he's pretty shy. He's an animal tamer, so he's got to be very gentle. He's a musician. So don't just take that one bottle hanging in the tree of him committing a crime and judge him. That's the word I wanted to pull out. The word judge. That's what you do when you make an opinion on somebody, is you're making a judgment. And judge can also be a job. So if you're good at making judgments, if you are a good judge of character, so if you can tell if a character, like the ones in our book, are good or bad, if you can tell if a person has good intentions or bad intentions, then you could be a good judge. So they're going to be able to just have opinions on people. And I think Gloria, what she's really trying to say here, guys, is to not judge too quickly, to get to know Otis first, and not make that quick judgment about him before she knows him more. So that is a good word. It's kind of an emotion word. It's a good character trait word. A good judge of character would be a good one. But without further ado, we're going to get into reading chapter 15. See if we are at Gloria Dump's house yet again. See where we're at this time. The Herman W. Block Memorial Library's air conditioning unit didn't work very good, and there was only one fan from the minute me and WinnDixie got in the library, he hogged it all. He lay right in front of it and wagged his tail and let it blow his fur all around. Some of his fur was pretty loose and blew right off him like a dandelion puff. I worried about him hogging the fan, and I worried about the fan blowing him bald. But Miss Franny Block said to not worry about either thing, that WinnDixie could hog the fan all he wanted, and she never in her life seen a dog made bald by a fan. Sometimes when Miss Franny was telling a story, she would have a fit. They were small fits, and they didn't last long, but what happened was she would forget what she was saying. She would just stop and start to shake like a leaf. And when that happened, WinnDixie would get up from the fan and sit right next to Miss Franny Block's side. He would sit up tall, protecting her, with his ears standing up straight on his head like soldiers. And when Miss Franny stopped shaking and started talking again, WinnDixie would lick her hand and then lay back down in front of the fan. Whenever Miss Franny had one of her fits, it reminded me of WinnDixie in a thunderstorm. And there were a lot of thunderstorms that summer. And I got real good at holding on to WinnDixie whenever they came. I held on to him and comforted him and whispered to him and rocked him. Just the same way he tried to comfort Miss Franny when she had her fits. Only I held on to WinnDixie for another reason too. I held on to him tight so he wouldn't run away. It all made me think about Gloria Dump. I wondered who confronted her when she heard those bottles clanking and knocking together. those ghosts clattering about, the things that she had done wrong. I wanted to comfort Gloria Dump, and I decided that the best way to do that would be to read her a book. Read it to her loud enough to keep the ghosts away. And so I asked Miss Franny. I said, Miss Franny, I've got a grown-up friend whose eyes are going on her, and I would like to read her a book out loud. Do you have any suggestions? Suggestions, Miss Franny said. Yes, ma'am, I have suggestions. Of course I have suggestions. How about Gone with the Wind? What's that about? I asked her. Why, said Miss Franny Block, it's a wonderful story about the Civil War. The Civil War? I asked. Do not tell me you have never heard of the Civil War. Miss Franny Block looked like she was going to faint. She waved her hands in front of her face. I know about the Civil War, I told her. That was the war between the South and the North over slavery. Slavery, yes, said Miss Franny. It was also about the states' rights and money. It was a terrible war. My great-grandfather fought in that war. He was just a boy. Your great-grandfather? Yes, ma'am. Litmus W. Block. Now there's a story. WinnDixie yawned real big and lay down on his side with a thump and a sigh. I swear, he knew that phrase, now there's a story, and he knew it meant we weren't going anywhere real soon. Go ahead and tell me, Miss Franny, I said, and I sat down cross-legged next to WinnDixie. I pushed him and tried to get him to share the fan. But he pretended he was sleeping, and he wouldn't move. I was all settled in and ready for a good story when the door banged and pinch-faced Amanda Wilkerson came in. WinnDixie stood up and stared at her. He tried out a smile on her, but she didn't smile back, and so he laid back down. I'm ready for another book, Amanda said, slamming her book down on Miss Franny's desk. Well, said Miss Franny, maybe you wouldn't mind waiting. I'm telling Indiana Opal a story about my great-grandfather. You are, of course, more than welcome to listen. It would be just 1 minute. Amanda sighed, real big and dramatic sigh, and stared past me. She pretended like she wasn't interested, but she was. I could tell. Come sit over here, said Miss Franny. I'll stand. Thank you, said Amanda. Suit yourself, said Miss Franny, and shrugged. Now, where was I? Oh, yes, Litmus W. Block. All right, and that is the end of chapter 15. So it looks like in chapter 16 we're about to hear a story from Miss Franny. Opal has said that Franny has told her many. So this is the first one we're going to hear, and it's about her great-grandfather and the Civil War. So I'm interested to hear that. Maybe we'll get to hear a little bit more about Miss Franny and that too. Unfortunately, Amanda Wilkerson walked in. It doesn't seem to be my favorite so far. I wonder what you guys think. Let me know in the discussion board, maybe what you think about that character, as well as your thoughts on chapter 15. All right, and then I'll see you back for chapter 16. Bye, guys.